Lost Roman Legion, vanished into thin air. There are many unsolved mysteries in history, but this is one of the most perplexing, playing on our deepest fear, the fear of the unknown. The year is 84 AD, and the Roman Empire is at its peak. Emperor Domitian rules like a god over his people. The provinces of Britannia and Caledonia are part of Rome's vast dominion. For decades, Rome has been engaged in a costly war with the tribes north of Hadrian's Wall. But now it's time for peace. The emperor's decision is made. The legions will be withdrawn from the province of Caledonia and sent south to build new roads. It's an easy order that should be carried out without incident. So why is it still a mystery 2,000 years later? What happened to the 9th Legion, and where did 5,000 men vanish to? We need to go back to basics. What do we know about the Lost Legion? Well, first of all, we know it was the 9th, not the 9th. There were 4 legions in Britain under the command of Gnaeus Julius Agricola. But as winter set in, it was decided that the brutal climate and constant uprisings by the local tribes made it impossible to stay. As spring arrived, 3 of the legions were ordered home, but the 9th stayed behind. We also know that the 9th had 5,000 men, along with auxiliary troops. The legion was commanded by the experienced officer Petilius Carialis. He was tasked with pushing further north than any Roman before him. To understand what happened next, we need to look at the geography of ancient Caledonia. The Romans knew little about the area north of Hadrian's Wall. They did know, however, that there were 3 large native tribes, the Ordovices, the Maiatai, and the Caledoni. To reach them, Cerialis and his soldiers would have to cross the River Clyde and the River Tay, 2 major obstacles. Little is known about the native tribes other than their fierce resistance against Rome and their love of chariots. With spring comes campaigning season. First, the legion marched north towards the River Clyde, where they built a fort to protect themselves. Then they moved on to the River Tay, where they repeated the process. At this point, the fate of the 9th Legion is a mystery. There are 2 possibilities, both equally likely. The first option is that the legion marched northwards across the Tay, but was never seen again. The second is that they turned around and headed back south, never having crossed the Tay. Both scenarios are equally possible because no trace of the legion has ever been found. So how did 5,000 men simply vanish? Well, let's start with the more popular theory. According to the historian Cassius Dio, the legion marched north and attacked the Maiatai. The natives used guerrilla tactics to wear down the Romans. Eventually, the legion was wiped out. But why haven't we found any evidence? This is a fair question, but there are 2 answers. The first is that the Romans were defeated so badly that their bodies were never recovered. The second is that the Romans were never there in the first place. The truth is that nobody knows what happened to the legion, so every year archaeologists search the River Tay and nearby locks for evidence. It's a long shot, but if anything is going to turn up, it'll be metal objects like swords and armor. If the legion did march north, then they would have been equipped with the finest weapons Rome had to offer. If the legion never marched north, then the 5,000 men would have been stationed at one of the forts near the River Tay. And if the Romans built these forts, then they would have left traces of their occupation. So far, nothing has turned up. But what does this really mean? There are 2 possibilities. Either the locals covered their tracks well, or the Romans were never there in the first place. What's most interesting about the loss of the 9th Legion is the lack of evidence. The Romans kept detailed records of everything they did. They recorded the number of miles walked each day, the number of men lost, the tribes they fought, and even the weather conditions. The records stop abruptly once the legion reached the River Tay. So it's likely that something catastrophic happened. But what? One possibility is that the legion was wiped out by the locals, but no bones have ever been found. The second is that they fell victim to the elements. The third is that they were ambushed by another tribe. And the fourth is that they simply vanished. There is no record of them marching north, which means they never got there. If the Romans really did cross the River Tay, then they would have faced the Maiatai. These warriors are described as hairy and short, just like the legendary Picts. But the Romans often exaggerated the appearance of the natives to scare off potential invaders. Today, we know that the Picts wore woad paint, not woad tattoos. Many historians believe that the accounts of Pictish people being painted blue is a mistranslation. In reality, they probably wore woad, a plant that turns the skin a beautiful shade of blue when crushed. The Romans weren't exactly known for their accurate descriptions of the natives, but this didn't stop them from trying. According to Cassius Dio, the Maiatai fought alongside the Picts, but this isn't entirely true. The 9th Legion would have faced many tribes over the course of their campaign, but only 2 remain in the historical record, the Maya and the Caledonians. According to legend, the Maya inhabited the central highlands of Scotland, where they lived in small clans. This would have made them perfect guerrilla fighters. Meanwhile, the Caledonians lived further north and were known for their chariot warfare. The 9th Legion would have faced both, but neither tribe was called the Picts. The name Picts didn't appear until much later, possibly a corruption of the Latin word pictus, meaning painted. If the legion was wiped out, then why is there no evidence? One answer is that the natives covered their tracks. But there's another explanation. The region had been occupied by the Romans for almost 2 decades. In that time, they had built forts, roads, and settlements. If the legion was wiped out, then it's likely that the natives destroyed these sites to erase all traces of the Romans. When archaeologists excavate these areas, they don't find any evidence of Roman occupation. It's as if they were never there. But what if the legion wasn't wiped out? Perhaps they were forced to abandon their equipment and flee south. But if they were chased all the way south, then surely we would have found evidence of a massacre. It seems unlikely that 5,000 men could simply vanish. Yet that's what makes this mystery so intriguing. Did the legion march north and get stuck in a bog? Or were they forced south by superior numbers? Did they hide their weapons and escape, or were they picked off one by one? Did they fall victim to the harsh Scottish winter, or were they hunted down and killed? Sadly, there are no answers, only theories. All we know for certain is that the 9th Legion reached the River Tay and was never seen again. Every year, archaeologists comb through the area, hoping to find some trace of the lost legion. So far, nothing has turned up, which has led to even more theories. What if the legion was never there in the first place? Perhaps the records were mistaken, and the 9th stayed in the south as planned. But if they were never in Caledonia, then why hasn't anyone been able to prove it? It's simple. The records are silent. There is no written record of the 9th staying in the south. All we know is that they reached the River Tay and disappeared. So is the truth out there waiting to be discovered? Perhaps the legion did cross the River Tay and was wiped out by the natives. Maybe they were ambushed by a different tribe or lost in the Scottish wilderness. Maybe they turned around and headed south, never having seen the Maiatai at all. Nobody knows what happened, but that won't stop us from looking. Each year brings us closer to solving the mystery of the lost legion. Who knows what the future will hold? Maybe one day soon we'll discover the truth. Maybe we'll finally learn what happened to 5,000 men. Or maybe we're destined to never know, to forever wonder what happened to the 9th Legion. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please drop a comment below to share your thoughts, and remember to subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.